I'm going to call the meeting of the Board of Sewer Commissioners to order, November 26, 2024. The Zoom chat will not be monitored. Participants who wish to speak must raise the hand icon until the chair asks them to unmute. Note, this meeting is being televised, streamed, or recorded by Bourne TV. If anyone in the audience is recording or videotaping, they need to acknowledge it. Such at this time, we do not have anybody in the audience, so I do not see anyone, and there is no one online. If anyone from the public wishes to access the meeting, they can do so by calling the following conference line: 1-929-205-6099, Zoom meeting ID 884-3036-4341, password all caps sewer. All items within this meeting agenda are subject to deliberation and votes by the Board of Sewer Commissioners.
Excuse me.
All right, we're in order. Do a moment of silence, recognize our troops, public safety officials. Personnel. To the flag.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. So we're starting with the preliminary review of our FY26 proposed sewer operational budget.
Are you skipping vision and mission?
Oh, sorry, did I miss something? Oh, sorry, reading of the vision and mission. Sorry, does anybody want to take that on? No calls? I'll take the vision. Bourne is a proud community that embraces change while respecting the rich heritage of the town and its villages. It is a municipality based on strong fiscal government with a durable economy that recognizes the rights of all citizens, respects the environment, especially the coastal areas of the community, and the amenities that it affords. Bourne embraces excellence, education, and offers to citizens a healthy, active lifestyle.
Bourne will maximize opportunities for social and economic development while retaining an attractive, sustainable, and secure coastline environment for the enjoyment of residents and visitors. For responsible and professional leadership and in partnership with others, Bourne will strive to improve the quality of life for all residents living and working in the larger community. And Madam Chair, can we take number 5 out of order since we both need to recuse ourselves and get it done now, and then we can come back and we don't have to go back?
I don't see why not. So we're going to skip over number 4 and head right to discussion and possible vote to set overage rates for calendar year 2025. We will be recusing ourselves.
All right, Matt, you want to fill us in? So that can be found on page,
Tell you what page.
what page is it of our, hold on, mine's not downloaded, so I don't have page numbers.
23?
Page 23 of your packet?
Yes.
Eighteen, 19, 20, 21, 22. There we go. All right,
I did give paper copies just for discussion.
I found it. Yeah.
So typically, I believe, this would be the first time I'm saying the overage rates, so please bear with me, but I believe we would set them prior to the next calendar year, because the overage rates are for calendar year, where everything else we do is based on the fiscal year. So the overage rates we would set, the board would set tonight would be for the calendar year 2025 and would be billed in fiscal year 26. So we put together a historic breakdown of what we've seen since 2020. So the rates have gone up. They went up in 2021, 22, and 2023, and again in 2024 with the gallons, and these were the dollar amounts for the commitment. So the estimated revenue was just based on, if we left the rates the same, we estimated based on fiscal 25's estimates, 12,750,000 gallons of water would give us a commitment of 255. And if we went down the chart, these are the different percentages and increases that would have depending on which percentage or which cents, dollars and cents you wanted to put towards the overage gallons. So I wasn't sure what the board had discussed previously at the previous years, if they wanted to increase them, keep them the same. If there was more information that the board wanted. So I guess I would leave it to you if you had any questions or how you'd want to move forward with this. The previous page in the packet does show an example of each, based on the 12,750,000 gallons, where the overage would be based with the proposed fiscal '26 budget, and where it would leave the annual fee for the users.
Any questions for Matt?
I'll talk about it a little bit.
Pardon me?
I said I can talk about it a little bit.
Okay, go ahead.
So, one of the things that we realized several years ago is that the overage fees had been set at $1, 1 cent per gallon, 1 cent per gallon. Since the beginning of time, since the rate was set at $45,000 and 1 cent per gallon. So I am interested in what the cost per gallon for the total budget is.
So when you say the cost per gallon, do you mean the cost per gallon for what we pump and treat?
Yes,
Okay, so I can give you fiscal '24 and '23.
okay.
So now this includes the total budget number. So for fiscal '24, it's 0.0416 cents.
Yep,
And for fiscal '23, it's 0.0404 cents. And I estimated for fiscal '25, based on the figures we had, and that would be 0.0421 cents.
so the reason that we have been increasing the cost per gallon for the overage over time is that when we analyzed the sewer rates, the people who were the low users, like less than 25,000 gallons per day, which are probably 60% of our users use less than 25,000 gallons a day per less. They were paying 10 cents per gallon. And the people who were using the overage were using 59% of the capacity and paying 1 cent per gallon, 1.2 cents, because there was a little bit added for their base rate. So that is an inequity where the overage people who are using the most of the system are basically paying the very least. And so over time, we've been increasing it. When we started doing the increases, I think the cost per gallon was like 3 cents per gallon, because it was kind of even maybe when we were just beginning to bring the wastewater treatment plant on board, and there were some other things that hadn't happened. So I think it's important to have kind of a plan that eventually will get to the right place. I mean, there could be more analysis where you were saying, well, there's like base fixed charges, and then there's the cost of like actually doing the system. And so how do we separate that out? That creates a lot. I don't, that's above my pay grade to figure out what to say, all right, these are the base user cost, this is what we're paying with the base, and this is what we're paying. But I think that there needs to become a time when the people who are using 12,750,000 gallons, which is about a third of the use of the facility, right? If we do 112,000 gallons per day times 365, that's 40 million, like 41 million gallons in the year. So if the overage people are using 12,750,000 and they're paying $255,000 for that, and the other people are paying $1,500,000 for that, there's a huge inequity going on here. And we've been talking about it for years, and I just don't know how we're going to rectify it in the long run. So. And theoretically, you know, if we start equalizing it so that the overage people are paying closer to the real rate, that
So how many people get charged overages?
the people that use more than 45,000 gallons per day,
And on the average, that's what percentage you said?
a number of users.
Yeah.
It's a very small number of users. Maybe,
I,
how many?
last year was 129 out of 703.
Yeah. And there's some like major big users. There are some major big users who are, you know, use a ton. I mean, I did a bunch of research on this when we were looking at the wastewater treatment plant facility. And there are some things, like the guy who has the laundry at Buzzards Bay. I mean, he basically said, if the cost gets too big, I'll just put in the recycling equipment. So, you know, that'll save us water usage and we won't be processing it. But, you know, so, and you can actually see that start to happen. As you start increasing the rates for the overage, people start watching their overage.
Right.
So we've seen a slight drop. I mean, it's not really significant, but, so we were really gradually increasing it. We started at 1 cent, we went to a cent 1.25, then we went to 1.5, then we went to 1.75, with the goal of getting to an equalized, to where the overage cost is really getting closer to what to the cost of per gallon. So, I'm not sure, but I'm thinking we need to kind of start increasing the incremental increase, or we're never gonna get there.
Of the overage rate.
Yes. So instead of going, maybe, I mean,
So,
and this is
right, so we're looking at jumping from 0.10175 to 0.02.
I think we're at 2
.02.
now.
We're at .02
Oh,
now.
24, I'm
It's
sorry.
still projected because we haven't had those calendar
Right.
billings in yet
Right,
till
right, right,
January.
right,
But so,
Right.
yeah, for calendar year
2025,
24,
it's 0.02,
yeah, we went to 2 cents.
right.
And so you can see, we started in 2020. And so we're getting to our, so this is our third year of increasing
What is the
rates.
projection for 2025?
12,750,000 gallons, which brings us to 255,000. But that will be that'll be this calendar year for fiscal '25. I think what we're looking to set tonight is for next
It's the
calendar year for
rate
Next
fiscal.
calendar year for fiscal.
Which doesn't actually get paid until March of 2026.
Right.
So it's all future. And I mean, I think we have to start at least doing half, 0.5 increase. And that's still really slow.
So
And to
what-
talk,
So what are you saying? Jump from 2 cents to
2.5 cents.
2.5 cents? 0.025 cents.
Yeah. For each quarter we said, it brings us $31,875 of
Dollars.
additional revenue, which saves the other people $31,875 that comes off the base rate, theoretically. Hasn't really been doing that, but it's been reducing the increases.
We're
that
trying to
facing.
narrow the gap.
Yeah, we're trying to narrow the gap. And I do think that we have to start, we need to kind of do some projection before next year at this time that says, we need to say we'd like to have it equalized in 4 years, 5 years, 3 years, and what it's gonna be, so we can put people on notice and say, we've gotta get it up to this point, because we still gotta have a pretty big gap. I mean, but 2.5 is closer to 4 cents a gallon than, yeah, I think we're getting there. If we started doing a half a cent, in a couple years, it'd be up to 4 cents.
Which we're at 0.0, we're at 416, right?
And, projected for for FY '24 at .0416.
416.
So, yep.
Oh, well, 0.0421 for
For
25.
fiscal '25, but that's still projected.
Yeah, that's projected, yeah.
Yeah, because we're only like partially into that year,
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
I kind of go by I mean, it's the 41 million gallons, pretty like, I mean, that's gonna be up close to where we are.
Yeah, it's
They're pretty
been,
consistent.
yeah.
Yeah. So that would be my suggestion, that we do that increase to 2.5 cents per gallon or 0.025. 0.0250.
0.0250.
Dollars.
And tell me again the number that's gonna generate, Mary Jane, or what it,
So it brings it's
news.
31,875 times 2, which is basically 63,000. Oh, 31,975, sorry, I think that's, I should check my numbers before I quote them. We could do the math. I can't do math in my head, so. Oh, this is $74,096.25. So the total commitment would be based on 12,750,000, 318,750.
would be the commitment?
Yeah, that would be the estimated amount that we would apply towards when we start setting the rates for FY '26.
And you said 129 users,
I
179?
think there's about
129
129 users that pay overage
Yep.
fees. There's 1,200 and how many, 1,200 something users,
Well, there are 1,200 units.
units.
So we have 700 users, and then of those, there's 1,200 units. For instance, all the big places have multiple units.
Okay.
All right, so is there a motion on the floor?
Yeah, I move that we set the overage rate for calendar year 2025 at $0.0250 per gallon, right?
Yes.
Second.
0.0250
Dollars per gallon, which is 2.5 cents.
per gallon. So a motion by Mary Jane, second by Jean, roll call vote. Any further discussion?
No,
Seeing
I guess
none?
that in light of what MJ said, I would just suggest that next year we set some goals for what the rates would be projected to be. So folks would see what would be coming in the years ahead.
I think it would be helpful for the businesses that are the really high users.
Right, almost like a 5-year capital plan, right?
Yeah,
Just to
yeah.
to try to project as far into the future as we can, just to,
You know, to kind of project, this is what the cost per gallon is, and this is how we're gonna bring it to equalization. So we're gonna raise it 0.5 cent per year until now, instead of 1/4 cent, we're gonna do 0.5 cent per year until we get to the level.
with the goal too of reducing, right? We want to try to reduce the overage as much as possible.
Yeah, I mean, the
people's
overage is the overage.
Right, but I think,
I think people, if you have it depends on your use. Dunkin' Donuts, Mezzaluna, the laundromat, it's the restaurants and the coffee places that are really high users, right?
right,
And
yeah,
then
that's,
they use
right.
water, I mean, so, not necessarily sewer, because they're coffee to go. But, we base it on water, so,
yeah.
and they're the high water users, and they're gonna use water, because they're gonna make coffee, you don't necessarily want to reduce their overage, because, you know.
Good.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Jean?
Yes.
Mary Jane?
Yes.
Anne Marie, yes. The vote's 3-0-0. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Yes.
All righty. All right, we'll skip back now that the overage rates are complete. We'll go back to preliminary review of the FY '26 proposed sewer operating budget. And I will hand that over to Matt. I know he's prepared to give us a quick rundown. I know MJ had a couple questions. I think the questions you had asked, one of them was what I was going to ask, so I think we're good there. So, yeah.
So I don't, once again, I wasn't here at the beginning of last year, so I'm not exactly sure how this happens. I know we talked about this as a select board with the finance committee, but I thought where we are proposing some increases, I thought it would make sense to come before the Board of Sewer Commissioners also and discuss some of those increases.
Yeah, thank you.
So if you look, we can just, if you want to just go right to the budget, we can talk about the increases, or if that's how you want to proceed.
All right. Let me bring it up on my side here, and then I can I guess I can let MJ, I can go over the questions that you asked, MJ, or do you want to ask them yourself? How do you want to do that?
It's up to Matt if he wants to sort of give a. general-
Highlight.
Highlight.
I'd like to get a
Yeah,
highlight, Matt,
exactly.
just for public,
Yeah, just so the
for the public to have some highlights of
changes and big changes.
changes.
So the first increase we came across was going to be a contractual obligation to pay Wareham for taking the 200,000 gallons a year, and that's an increase of $11,314.
Okay.
The second increase that we came across was wastewater treatment facilities contracted services. So there is a spreadsheet here that kind of shows an example of the past 3 years of contracted services. So the way it's been budgeted in the past is we have a contract with Weston Sampson for a set dollar amount that covers 4 hours of operations at the treatment plant. But it doesn't really cover any hours outside of that or emergency callbacks. So we've taken that out of different parts of the budget. So what I'd like to do is, so we did a comparison. FY '22, we spent about $137,000 in contracted services total, which included the set $83,000 plus all the additional calls. And in FY '24, we spent $98,000. And in FY '23, we spent $98,000. And FY '24, we spent $126,000. So in FY '25, so we haven't spent this yet, but we're already up to $93,000. That's not what we're up to. That's all of the contracted amount plus 3 months of the contracted services. So we're just looking to possibly increase that around $27,000 to bring that up to $120,000 to offset some of those costs. So we're not taking them out of other parts of the budget.
So this would be just one true line item instead of trying to provide monies, to cover the cost of contract service and other line items. You're bringing it back to one line item.
Yeah, because we've actually overspent it, but by overspending it, we haven't spent other line items.
Okay.
Do you want to talk about each of these?
Sure. Yeah, go
Sorry.
ahead.
So I think we should just pause between
Yeah.
each one. So we
Okay,
don't-
I'm
yeah.
sorry, Madam
So,
Chair.
no, that's okay.
Okay, no worries, it's all right. I'm not gonna,
I
We're all right.
I agree, and it's, one of the things that was difficult for me is that we don't have for fiscal year '24, the original budgeted column. So we need to be able to see that, so we can see, for '24, there's an actual, but we need to see what was budgeted versus the actual, which is what helps us see that was over budget.
Okay.
And that there was something else that was under budget that helped cover that. So
Okay.
so I like to see at least one. And 22 is helpful just because 22, we were still lumping all the wastewater treatment plant facility costs into one thing.
Okay.
That was, I think, the first year of operation, right?
2022 was the first full
Yeah.
full year.
So when we started, we said, well, how much is it gonna cost? And they gave us some, like, they said $258,000, so we threw in $258,000, and it ended up costing us a lot more than that, but, like, yeah. But, so, I think it was good. Marlene ended up separating it out in FY '23, so we could see actual versus budget. So, I agree that this cost needs to, like, this line item has to be increased, but I'm really concerned about this line item.
Okay.
I mean, because we know that we've had issues at the plant, that those are the things that cause it. And we had all those issues where, alarms were going off, or computers weren't working and talking to us, or there was a quaternity event. So I think we should increase it so that we can actually pay for it. But I'm concerned about this, and I think you have in some other place looking at like how we're doing it. So, because I think the Wareham plant pays Weston Sampson $120,000 a year for contracted services. So I'm like, okay, like, I just want a more thing, but I agree with that increase of that budget line item.
Yes. Okay. Anyone else? Peter? No? Yeah. Okay.
So the next item we had an increase for was wastewater treatment facility chemicals. So we may add a second line item to this, but I thought for this year, it might be easier just to show it as an increase. So there is I meant to put this in the packet, we'd been working on adding chemicals at Hideaway Village. And so we had cost estimates and a memo that was done back in September. And it's gonna be about $10,000 to add chemicals to Hideaway to eliminate that hydrogen sulfide. So we just wanted to add that to the budget this year so that we don't go over and have to do a reserve fund transfer next year.
Perfect. Okay.
That's the dioxide product?
Yes, correct. Yep.
Okay.
All right. Any questions on that, MJ? Peter? MJ?
I think that's a good idea. I actually think, because you referenced the I&I study that we had done, and they actually talked about their concern about the hydrogen, about the hydrogen sulfide. And so I think it's good that we're getting, I think it's excellent that we're getting progress on that.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. Yes, we all agree. All right, Peter, you're good at there? All right. Anne Marie, good? All right.
Yeah.
Moving on.
So the next line item, and this is the big one. Our sludge costs have gotten increasingly larger every year. I know we did a reserve fund transfer last year, and we're just continuing to see the sludge costs go up. I've talked to the operators. We're not out of the realm of normal for the sludge usage. Right now, in the summertime, they're taking about 10,000 gallons out a week. I have done a comparison spreadsheet
Yeah.
showing all the sludge removal that we've had in the past 2 years. I'm sorry, in FY '24 and so far in FY '25. We are estimated that when the plant's fully operational, 100,000 gallons, we're gonna be taking out about 696,000 gallons of sludge a year, and that comes to approximately $176,000 when the plant's built out. One other thing I will say we've been taking out of the sludge budget is, now that the plant's been operational, there's been some services we've had to do. We've had to clean the EQ tanks, we have to clean the trash tanks, and that's all the same company that takes out the sludge. It's just a more expensive process. They're taking out more at one time, or they're having to use a vac truck to take it out. So some of those costs you'll see are in there. When you see the higher dollar amounts for the sludge removal, that's when we had to clean out an EQ tank.
I was wondering about
or a
that, because
trash
sometimes
tank.
it's the same amount of gallons,
Yes.
Right.
but it's like a higher
Higher
cost.
sludge,
So,
yeah.
okay.
And that should only be, so like this year, what you'll see is we did that twice, because we did it in July, and we just recently fixed the trash tank, and we had to do it again when we did the trash tank. But usually that should be a once-a-year thing, we'll do those higher cost sludge removals. So it's hard to ask for that increase, but I also think that it's merited, and I don't want to present false numbers and lower the dollar amount if we don't have to, especially where I foresee the costs continuing going up. Even if we are taking the same amount of sludge out, I just foresee the cost to dispose of that getting higher and higher, and maybe harder to find places to do it. Bigger plants, I think might have talked about this in the past, can take the liquid out of the sludge. Typically, smaller plants don't have that. It's something we could look into, but it's probably an initial cost of $500,000 to install a system to remove the liquid, so maybe in the long term, it's something we could look at.
Okay, good idea.
But so there are options like that to try to reduce our sludge output. But for right now, I don't think as much as it's unfortunate that I have to propose that number, I don't think there's any issues with the plant or with the operations to increase that sludge.
Is that a tight number, conservative number?
Yes, that should, yes, I'm comfortable with that,
Yeah.
that figure.
Thank you. You have brought this to our attention. We have discussed it before. I remember in some of our conversations. I mean, I think that makes sense to myself. I don't know about MJ. I know she's the budget, she's the budget expert
Well, I
and the
think- yeah,
financial,
I
but.
think-
I mean, I think the
I mean,
budget,
it's,
I think the sludge
yeah.
is, you know, is, the big question is, do we have too much sludge?
Yeah.
And the second question is, who's taking our sludge? I mean, is it going to Wareham?
I believe it goes to New Bedford right now. Don't hold me
So-
to that, but I believe that was the last tanker I saw.
I do know that Wareham has had issues with sludge, like getting rid of sludge. But in our contract, so the Wareham plant does take sludge. And I don't know if it still applies in our contract with them, but we used to get 2 cents off per gallon of sludge because there's revenue from it. And so I don't know if we can send it there instead of, I don't know what the deal is.
I
So,
mean, I can look into it if you,
yeah, I mean, we gotta increase the budget. It's known, we have to make sure that we can cover the budget, but, I think we need to, understand the sludge in our, I don't know under our current contract with Wareham if we're still getting the 2 cents for credit, or whether they're just saying it is what it is based on your 2.5%. So, yeah,
All right. Any
and that
other?
might be a sleeping dog to let lie.
Yeah, all right. Any further questions? Peter? No?
I'm good on the sludge.
All
Sure,
right.
Gene.
Oh, Jean, you good? You all set? All right. Thank you, Matt. Moving on.
the next one was the Wareham capital assessment. And I did include in today's packet the debt services. So Wareham has not actually sent us a bill, but they sent us their debt service schedule. And we did the calculations off of that. What did happen was, this fiscal year, one of the projects came off the dollar figure amount, so it went down. And that in FY '24, there was a project that went on the capital. However, they haven't billed us for that yet. We're actually sitting on an encumbrance of $106,000 that they haven't billed us for that yet. That's just part of the conversation. It doesn't have to do with the budget next year, but it's just
For
part of.
this year?
It was
The
actually
hundreds
we were
last
supposed to
year?
pay it in FY '24, and we've reached out to them, and they haven't sent us a bill yet.
Yeah.
So,
Go ahead.
Can I
And
talk
that's
about
capital?
this? I'm gonna say I don't think this needs to be in this budget this year. SRF is like very interesting. So this project, this is for the headers and clarifiers, right? Just got notice to proceed in September. They are just working on their interim financing with SRF that will give them the 0% financing during construction. So when you start the SRF loan, they give you this loan schedule that says it's gonna start in FY '25, right? But it's false. It's not a real schedule, it's not the final schedule, and the interest and principal payments don't begin until the final schedule. And I'm gonna give you, so the way it works with SRF is they start payments either for January 15th or July 15th. The January 15th payment is an interest-only payment. The July payment is principal and interest. They usually give you a year heads up. So when we actually did our SRF loan for the wastewater treatment plant, our original schedule said it was going to begin in July of 2021. That's what it showed, right? Our first payment was actually an interest-only payment in January of 2023, which was FY '23, and our first principal payment was in July of '23, which was FY '24. So there is this whole gap. So if Wareham doesn't have a final debt schedule, and I'm not talking about the interim one that they've showed you, because there's no loan forgiveness on that. Plus, this schedule is gonna be really weird, because we're gonna have to figure out with SRF how our 25% from Cape and Islands water protection is gonna get applied.
okay.
Whether it's gonna come as reimbursement to us, whether they're gonna pay it to Wareham, that's a whole thing. So this is gonna be very complex, but I'm gonna tell you, 99.98% sure that this is not gonna be in this year's budget. So I don't think it should be in here, but you'll have to consult with Eric. And Eric has been through this SRF thing before. So just tell her, we don't have a final debt schedule. Do we need to put it in?
Okay.
And, I mean, if you want to leave it in, you can, but I think we should take it out and add it later in March if it actually comes, you know? So that's my opinion.
Thank you. And Anne Marie? You?
Yeah, my concern is, I mean, I'm not familiar with the whole SRF and its process, so I
Neither.
certainly would rely on Erica
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
her recommendations. Of course, we don't want to get caught behind the eight ball, but if there's opportunity there that, we can hold a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we were doing our plan, it was like, oh, yeah, they pushed it off again. Oh, yeah, they pushed it off again. And it may not even, even the other one, I mean, I thought we got billed for it one year, though. I don't know.
But-
Maybe they haven't started it yet, so that's another question to ask them. Do they have their final debt
Final
schedule?
debt schedule, yeah.
It's like a Schedule C, I think it's called.
Okay. Any further discussion? Either? No? All right, thank you, Matt, very good.
Oh, I just want to add something about that project.
Sure.
The headers and clarifiers. So that project, the bid came in at 27 million. And they had, including the first alternate, they had another alternate for a vehicle facility that they didn't take as an alternate, but they've just done as a change order for $2.6 million. I don't think that $2.6 million vehicle facility should fall under the same capital as the
Well, we have to pay.
plant,
Yeah.
where, because we are 17.91 users of the plant,
Yeah.
we pay 17.91 users. But if there's something in the Wareham system, like Swiss Beach relining or something, we don't pay for that. So they may say you have to pay part of it, but I don't,
Okay.
I have a question about that. Just put it in your
Right.
notes about
question.
future. Yeah. They can be slippery.
Okay,
And, sorry.
thank you, Matt.
We had one more increase, was for replacement equipment. There's a spreadsheet with what we've paid so far with replacement equipment. We're up to $65,000 just in FY '25. What we're seeing is at the treatment plant, we're having a lot of equipment failures with transmitters and pumps, backwash pumps, and the screen drives are starting to fail. So we just want to make sure we have enough money to cover those costs. We do purchase some of our, we do purchase grinder pumps out of that line item also. However, if you see farther down, we have a capital item that we might talk about for that, so we could offset some of those pumps with that. Although the pumps we typically see out of the operating budget are the ones that have to be kind of fixed right away, and we kind of keep a stockpile of them. But we are seeing cost of that plant increase with parts. This is kind of the second time I've been through this. My previous job, there was a plant. What tends to happen, I learned quickly, is that a lot of the costs are the same for some of the replacement equipment in a smaller plant as is in a bigger plant, especially when it comes to some of the skater equipment. And so you kind of have to, we have less people we're pulling from. It just has more of an effect. And I'm starting to kind of see that with when I'm talking to the operators and seeing what's kind of the bills that are coming through from the plant. I just foresee probably a few more issues next year of parts we'll have to replace. So that's why we kind of propose that $20,000 increase.
Okay,
But I rather, as we see it, add more money to it instead of, ignoring it, and then we get one big bill later, I'd rather get, if something breaks, I'd rather see them fix it right away, or instead of trying to stretch it out, because preventive maintenance, deferred maintenance, after a while, if you let it go too far, it's gonna become a bigger problem than it needs to be.
yeah, and I think, the cost of any supplies is going up, housing, everything. I mean, we got repairs on my vehicle, and it's almost doubled what it would have been, 5-6 months ago. So it makes sense to me, but I'll see if MJ has any questions.
Well, I actually think, I actually think when you think budgetary-wise and planning, that if, especially if this debt for the headers and clarifiers isn't gonna come on, this is a good time to like make sure our other budget line items are like solid, so that when that does come on, that's the, we're not trying to increase our line items and we're trying to, I think that's kind of a good thing. I am worried about, I mean, it all goes back to the same thing. Weston Sampson designed the plant, Weston Sampson is overseeing the plant. The equipment failures are happening, and maybe they just happen every 3 to 5 years. I mean, maybe that's the reality of a plant. You're gonna have to replace things for 3 to 5 years. But I'm a little bit disappointed in the non-longevity of some of the equipment in that plant.
Frustrating.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's
Thanks.
frustrating.
We have to be prepared to pay for replacing it, but,
Sure.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
things aren't lasting like they used to.
No.
They aren't. I mean, you look at your appliances.
I know, it's crazy.
They're not lasting 7 years, 5, 7 years for, refrigerators and things like that. You're replacing them.
Planned obsolescence.
It's just, yeah. And things are costly. It costs to maintain, and the best prevention and the best, getting things as reliable as possible, like you said, Mary Jane, what things we can control right now and ensure that they're going to be sustainable. When the big number hits, then,
We're not trying to do both.
we're not trying to do both, and,
Yeah.
it's just smart business, right? To take care of business now that we can and ensure longevity and as best we can, and, yeah, so I agree. Having some spare parts or
Having the budget availability is better.
having that, if we have the availability now, let's do it.
All right, very good. Moving on. Next item on our agenda is preliminary review of the FY '26 proposed capital requests.
So we were gonna propose 2 requests this year. One was gonna be part of a long-term project to upgrade the pumps and the control panels and the wiring in Taylor's Point. We calculated that, to replace each pump, the electrical lines are gonna be a different length at every house, but, if we average it out, to do it's about $10,000 a pump. I think that's probably conservative, they'll probably come in a little lower, but that's what we're assuming, if we were to do a project with a subcontractor. So we'd like to start that project next year and try to do 15 pumps. And each year, if the budget allows and if we're able to kind of continue that project each year. One thing that we're a small department, so I think when we talked about internally, we don't want to take on a giant project of replacing 60 or 70 pumps in one year. I just think that's a lot for the staff we have along with the crew we have. But if we did a few every year, I think that would be kind of a logical way to move forward with doing that project in Taylor's Point. Because I know it's been on the agenda for a long time, and I know the crew also wants to look at it. So I didn't know if that was something that the board entertained.
My question is, would it be if we were to just bond this out,
Yeah.
instead of, and buy everything all at once, put them in storage, because cost of material goes up with each year. Yes, granted, you're gonna be paying interest on it, but it may end up washing it, when it's all said and done, but you may end up saving money by bonding. And the other thing is, we're starting, we have to start putting stuff back into debt, because we're becoming low as like this building's being paid off another, we have to start showing some debt. What's her name said it? Erica said it.
Yeah, that's general fund really. more
Right,
than
keep our
this,
bond
but-
rating up and.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wonder if bonding's an option here.
Can I make
Go
a?
ahead, please.
I kind of looked at some of that, what you said, that you're replacing grinder pumps like, you've got like 10 you've already bought this year, like to try to do it. And my concern is if we do this project over 5 years, you're already, 60 of them are gonna be, like, it's gonna be failures and this and that. I mean, what's the difference of saying, we're gonna take this on as a project, not necessarily, I mean, I know that it's more expensive if you have someone else do it, but why don't we just take this project as a project that needs to be happen, get it done in a year or two, so we're not constantly replacing grinder pumps. And we talked about the fact that there's grinder pumps that last 20 years, and there's grinder pumps that are being replaced at the same house every 3 years. And those people need to pay for their own replacement. They're abusing them.
Well,
And
if they're
so-
abusing them, right.
And if we do the massive thing and say, this is what it is, and if we take your pump out, and I don't know if you can find out if there's wipes in it or something when you take it out, we see abuse, you're paying, that it just handles it. I'm really concerned about waiting 5 years. I mean, half of these pumps are all gonna be failed.
I think my concern would be what Matt had said, though. Does he have the staff and the capacity to replace them in 2 years, though,
Well-
right? He just mentioned to us that he said that it might be we all know staff is an issue, so would that put a burden on you and your staff is the question.
I think the only concern we have is that it's not depending on if we go about subbing all the project out, but there's still an aspect that involves the staff in this job, especially on a house-by-house basis. I think it'd be great to do it all at once, and I'm sure if we discuss that, we would be fine with it. It's just, I just don't want to have that, and I don't think it would be, honestly. I don't think it would be an issue. It's just something I thought about and we discussed.
Yeah.
But I also know they also want to get the project done.
Yeah.
It's important to them.
We've been talking about,
Yeah,
this
it's
is
important
supposed
to
to be
them
an
to do it.
ARPA project that
we
was
have.
supposed to be done by now. I
Yeah, 'cause
mean,
you have houses out there that maybe use 5 days a calendar year. They come down, for a holiday and they go right back home, or, like our association building, we use it 5 times a year, but we pay the full rate, we don't get no reduction, so that grinder pump, I think one year we counted 3 times someone flushed the toilet the whole year. So, I mean, it depends, there are houses that are constantly going like mine, but, so some of these pumps are gonna look brand new because they're hardly ever used. And so you may wanna replace those last because you know that they're still functioning, and just try to just prioritize out. But like I said, some of these things, yeah, they're going all the time and you don't know what they're pumping down. 'Cause there are some houses on the point that are being replaced 3 or 4 times a year sometimes, and then it's because they're flushing stuff that shouldn't be flushed down the toilet. And, but, yeah,
One thing I will
I just wonder if bonding out is an option, is a way.
Or
I
seeing it-
prefer to say that we bond it and try to
Seeing
get
it
it
more
done
as
as soon as
a
possible.
project and have a start and end date and
Yeah,
what that project cost looks like by,
Yeah.
subbing it out or, yeah.
I will say just that 600,000, it'll be more than that if we bond it out, if you want to do all of Taylor's Points, because I believe there's 186 total grinder
Right.
pumps. So I don't want that, I just want,
Be realistic.
I'm happy to do this, just that number will probably go up.
Well, that was my next question, is you have 186 low-pressure users, 15 times 5 is 75, so we're already at 111.
We were just gonna prioritize each year, the
Okay.
ones that were failing or the ones that had given us the most problems. We have a list right now of 30 that we want to do right off the bat.
Okay.
So that we were just gonna prioritize each year.
Because I know my house right now, because they had to fix it many years ago, and the wire needs to be replaced. So right now, if you drive by my house, there's no red light on, ever, even if the thing failed.
yeah, if I can, that's one of the biggest concerns, is that there's no conduit, there's wires in the ground. This is an electrical thing it's really a safety thing that we need to get fixed, and an operational thing that I don't think we should be waiting 5 years to get them all done. I think we should just
Bite the
do
bullet.
it.
Okay.
We'll rerun the numbers.
Jean, anything? You all set? Okay, all right, just making sure. I don't want to forget you up there. I tend to neglect my Zoom, so. All right, moving on. Number 7, update, just on
Another
the,
project too, I'm sorry.
Oh, there's 2 capital
Yeah.
projects.
oh, there is,
So
sorry.
The other
Sorry about
project
that.
is, we'd like to.
Forgot
design
you,
the- I'm
see?
sorry. The skate assistant for the sewer.
Okay, yes.
Right now, we're pretty much blind everywhere, and the pump controls are outdated. And a modern SCADA system. We would have pump controls at the main stations at Hideaway and Main Street. We'd also have control over the community building pump station. One of the other things we've discovered is that the SCADA system in the treatment plant is very basic, and the part of the system doesn't talk to the Kubota system. So they're only talking to each other minimally. So if we had a full SCADA system, we could kind of monitor, we could also monitor the treatment plant and see when there are actually alarms coming in, have eyes on that, plus all the other systems. So, it's a costly venture to get into, but I think to design it now and design the most cost-effective one, and then possibly next year propose the construction of it, I think long-term we get a lot of useful data out of that system and be able to monitor much more closely than what we're monitoring right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I talk about something else in the capital plan?
Is it
It's
in the
not
ad-
this year's, it's in the 5-year that you're showing. So there's an item on here that's engineering and permitting for sewer expansion. And we can talk about this a little bit more when we get to that regulations thing. I don't think that should be on our 5-year plan. I don't think sewer expansion for the environment, it's not part of our CWMP. And in reality, we're only using 37% of our capacity right now. So when we get to like 70 or 80%, let's talk about it. But most of the numbers on the allocation sheet are 5 to 10 years out. I'm not in any hurry.
All right.
So it's just my feeling. I think it's premature to put it on the 5-year plan.
Is that it?
Yep.
Okay. Any other thoughts on the SCADA? Jean, Anne Marie?
No, if
Peter,
it's gonna
that's good.
increase efficiency and give us better data.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, moving
I think
on.
it's reasonable.
All right, update on Hideaway Village Low Pressure System Upgrade Project.
So I was just gonna, just real quickly, it's been out to bid. We're gonna receive the bids on December 4th. And we should have a final dollar figure then and see how many of the, I know we should be able to do 3, and then if we can add any additional pumps to that, we'll know that day.
Okay.
So I just wanted to put that on there.
Yeah, thank you, very thorough. You gave us a nice key dates for the bid, and so you think the sealed bids, they're due by December 4th, and then the contract will be awarded December 11th?
Yep.
All right.
And we don't have to do anything with that, right?
I don't think so. If you want us to come back, I don't think you have a meeting that week after that.
Well, the reason I asked is
No,
that we
yeah.
have to spend the ARPA, we have to commit for the
Right.
ARPA funds. So we have meetings on the 10th and the 17th for
Maybe
select
do it
board.
an
So
early-
if there's something quick that we have to do to make sure that deal gets sealed.
Yeah, that is, that is other, we're pushing it. We're gonna make it.
Yeah,
Thank you,
Yeah.
Nat.
Thank you.
yeah, we can
Always
we can add it to a select board agenda.
Excellent. All right, so we're moving along pretty good here. DPW's Director's Report.
I just had 2 things. First thing was the groundwater discharge permit is all approved and official with Mass DEP and EPA. There was no comments in the open comment period, which was the last thing we were waiting for. And last week, we talked about it briefly, but the trash tank is finally fixed and replaced. It was a substantial project for, we used some DPW resources. But it's all fixed now, and that wall's been replaced, and that should help the operations of the plant.
Very good.
Can you just refresh on like what that was? Because we actually had a meeting up at the police station last week, November 19th, and
Was it when we were doing the work?
yeah.
So
That
there's
was bad.
out front of the police station, there's a
Yeah.
10,000 gallon, they call it trash tank, which is where the pump from the community building pumps directly into that trash tank. And it filters out most of the liquids and some of the trash that comes in. It sorts it out there before it gets into the
Plant.
into the grit screens. So that wall at some point fell over. And once we pumped it out, we were able to see what the actual brackets rotted out and fell. We're not exactly sure why, it just was however it was installed, it wasn't installed properly. So we had to it was a the biggest issue we had was the top weighed 17,000 pounds, and finding a piece of equipment that the town had to lift that off. And so once that was lifted off, we had to clean out all of the solids and all of the liquids, and the holes in the tank are up high, so we had to clean out everything below it. And then Weston and Sampson came in and did all the work inside the tank. They put the wall back up and put new brackets in. And that should,
Strong brackets.
yes, much better. They put brackets down the whole sides of the wall. And they lagged it in much better than the way it was installed before. And that should keep more stuff out of the plant going forward and give us more access to clean it more easily too, because there was only 2 tanks, there was only 2 covers on the top of that. We added a third one once we had the cover off, so we have access to more sections of the tank to clean it and maintain it and inspect it.
How often does that get cleaned?
Once a year, it was recommended.
Okay.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you,
They're all
Matt.
closed up now.
Yeah, we just have to pave it, but it's all
Yeah.
closed. It was pretty,
Yeah.
it wasn't
Messy project.
it was a,
It was a stinky one.
yeah.
It was a stinky
I
one.
noticed that when I pulled in. All right, thank you so much. Anybody have any comments on that? All good? All right, so we're down to our wonderful allocation. So let me see, what do we put it on? It's policy discussion of the sewer use rules and regulations on our allocation policy. Matt and I, we thought we would add this on here. I know this was part of our conversations at one of our recent meetings, discussing the capacity remaining and talking about the, unallocated and uncommitted allocated, and then the ones that are actually using less, and possibly trying to come up with, just having a discussion about that. I know that MJ had some thoughts, and so here we are. I don't know where to start with that. Do you want to start, MJ, on that? I know you
Well,
have.
actually, it looks like Matt has identified an added thing. Is there only one thing on page 66, this D? I don't know what D is. It's the only thing I found that was in
So
the-
we did.
Is
so
that
we
added?
didn't
The
make-
highlight was added, or the highlights were being removed? Highlights
so
added.
We haven't made any changes to the policy. What I wanted to do was.
Oh, okay.
My computer.
highlight.
So what I wanted to just kind of bring up is the different options DEP would give us that we could utilize to relook at our allocations, and also what's required with our groundwater discharge permit and with the Wareham IMA. So once we hit 80,000 gallons a day going into the plant, we have to start looking at how we would reduce flows to not exceed that 100,000 gallons a day. And in the Wareham IMA, once we hit 180,000 gallons, we have to do the same thing with Wareham. So I just wanted to point that out, so when we get to there, that's when we'll have to probably take more steps. We're not even close to that yet, we're not even close to that level. But that's kind of the guiding light of what we need to look at when we get to those levels. So there's also a few different ways we can, Title V is the way we use it in actual flows, and we use both of those options right now. Metered flows is an option we can use based on other businesses to possibly estimate new businesses coming in. But the problem with that is you have to add a 200% contingency to that, and I think that's too high.
Yeah.
And the per capita flows, our plant, the groundwater doesn't really allow us to do that. It's not really, we shouldn't really use that as a way to measure flows. So we can do Title V in actual use. We can look at other options kind of based off these, but this is kind of where we're at. My fear was any policy we do, if it affects the income coming in, because we're using Title V for the income, I just have fears that I don't know if the board wants to discuss changing how we allocate at the beginning or after the preliminary or after the operation, or if once they're up for 3 years, we want to just take them off of the allocation policy altogether and just go on their actual use. I think it's more, I wanted to kind of hear what the board, what they wanted to see with the allocations. What if you want to just, that's really kind of what I wanted to do tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm going to have to divert to MJ or probably first. I can tell you have questions or some comment.
Well, I've been doing the allocation policy since 2015, so it's been a long time since we started, had none and then started it. I would stick with the Title V for the allocation. It's off, it's overestimated, we know that. But this highlighted thing on page 66, where the average annual flow exceeds 80% of the permitted flow limitations by the permittee. Is this part of our policy?
This is part of our groundwater discharge permit.
Okay. So there should be someplace in our sewer regulations that actually says that we are going to monitor this, but we have to monitor it three ways. We have to monitor total system availability, total system capacity of 300,000. When is actual use getting to 80%? And we want to say 75 or something, because we're going to have to notify at 80, but I'd just stick with 80 for the time being. So when is actual use of the total 300,000 getting to 80%? When is the Wareham capacity of 200,000 getting to 80%? We need to monitor that, and we need to monitor when the wastewater treatment capacity is getting to 80%. And they're kind of like separate, because we have some flexibility. If Wareham's under and the plant's getting over, we can shift it. I don't know if there is a shift the other way, but we
That
could,
we're
yeah.
capable of
So
doing
if
that,
we
yes.
we could shift it, but then we have to really monitor the total system capacity to make sure we don't go over. But that's on actual use. So I think you raise a good point about we monitor actual use, and then we monitor our allocations, whether we need to have an operational allocation. I mean, we're still kind of, it's not really in our calculation anymore. We're just kind of saying that, I mean, it comes out because we go actual plus preliminary plus whatever. There's a preliminary that's not operational, and then there's the preliminary that is operational, so. I think it's 6 of one, half a dozen of another, but I think it's helpful to kind of know, because we have I think it's 42,000 gallons of allocation that in 2023 or 2024 only used 6,000 gallons, so there's a big disparity.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's ever gonna be perfect. I just think we have to recognize that we may be able to overcommit our allocation, because we're never gonna be over actual use, even if we do. That's kind of my
Anne Marie,
feeling.
anything?
This is the first go-around for me for this policy, so I need to kind of do a little more
too,
homework
yeah.
on it and absorb, and maybe compare with other policies in other towns to
Yeah.
kind of wrap my head around it. So I don't know what we should add
Yeah, yeah. Gotcha.
yet. I mean,
Jean?
should we have steps in the event we reach that 80%? Should that be part of our policy? What are the next steps if we have to do that? Does it need to be done now and be part of our policy, or does that matter?
I don't think you can do it now,
Okay.
because I don't think
I don't know.
I think it has to be done at the time.
At
I
the
mean,
time.
Yeah.
To understand
Like
what's
to say,
happening at the
okay,
time,
we're
and the cause,
reaching that point,
right?
like, what do we do now?
Yeah, what's the best
Yeah.
plan?
Yeah.
Okay. Jean, Peter, all good? Okay, wow. All
Did that
right.
answer your question?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're doing, we're just, the
Great, Matt.
conversation's open.
Yeah, when was the last time the policy was reviewed?
Well, the last time it was updated was, it says here 2018, I thought we did it later than that.
I thought we worked on it since
What?
I've been here, but maybe not. We've done a lot of
the
policy
allocation
work since I
policy?
started
That's part
on
of
the
the
board.
sewer regulations now. We don't have an allocation policy really anymore.
Yeah, 'cause it says revised July 2018
Where does it say that?
on the bottom of the page.
What page?
Page 32, or it's page 68, if you were.
It says adopted, and then it says last
Oh,
revision,
th- th- this was-
2024,
This was an excerpt from a guidance document.
March
I'm sorry,
26th.
this was nothing to do with it. This was just
Yeah.
an excerpt from a guidance document.
I'm just, all right, yeah.
March 26th, 2024 on this.
Oh,
one.
yeah, I was gonna say, because I
I knew we had
it was-
worked on it
No,
since
I-
I've been on the board, but.
Yeah, this
okay.
isn't our policy. It's a guideline for design, construction, operation, and maintenance of wastewater treatment facilities and land disposal.
Yeah, I know, I thought, I knew it was later, but I just didn't know if I missed or something, because I see that on there, so that's what I was taking as.
We've actually revised it pretty recently.
Yeah, March. It says March 30th of Oh, no, sorry. Last revision was March 26th of 2024. I knew we had seen it before, but I didn't remember a ton of discussion, though. I remember see, like, I barely remembered it, but I saw it.
I think that was when we put the abatement policy. in.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah, because we didn't have an abatement policy, so that's when
Maybe.
I think that's what we did then.
All right, perfect. All right, so we're on to the minutes. We have 2 sets of minutes here.
Motion to approve minutes of 8/20/2024 and 9/17/2024
Right.
as submitted.
We have a motion by Peter,
Well, I
second
have to
by
abstain from one.
MJ. And Anne Marie is abstaining from the, what's this
You want two
date?
separate motions?
Yeah, let's do 2 separate.
Motion to approve 8/20/2024.
All right, motion
Second.
and a second on the minutes for 8/20/24. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none. I'm going to do a roll call. Peter?
Yes.
MJ?
Yes.
Yeah, Jean? Anne Marie?
Yes.
Melissa, yes.
And a
All
mo-
right,
and
500.
motion to approve 9/17/2024 minutes.
All right, we have a motion by Peter,
I'll second.
a second by MJ to approve the minutes from 9/17/2024. All right, any further discussion? No, hearing none. Okay, I'll do roll call again. Peter,
Yes.
MJ,
Yes.
Anne Marie?
Abstain.
Abstained. Jean?
Yes.
Melissa, yes. 4-0, 1 abstained. All right, there's the minutes. And correspondence, do we have any this evening?
I didn't see any.
No
anything.
correspondence?
I don't see anything.
Future agenda items, anyone? I know, any thoughts? Matt's doing really great with that, I've been happy with that. Any committee reports? None that I'm aware of. In our next meeting date, we do not have a meeting in December, but we may have to add something to one of the prior select board meetings if any meetings or votes are necessary.
Or even have a
Yeah.
quick Zoom if we
Quick
have to
Zoom
approve
if
that
needed.
contract or something. We do 15-minute Zooms at noon.
Absolutely. I'm fine with that, yeah.
Yeah,
All right, so
good at those.
do I have a motion to adjourn?
so moved.
All right, motion by Anne Marie, Peter? I mean, sorry,
Second.
second by Peter? Second by Peter? All right, no further discussion? All right, Peter?
Yes.
MJ?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
Anne Marie?
Yes.
Melissa, yes, 500, we are adjourned.
8:05.
Wow.